Good morning, and welcome back to Lopes on Movies. My name is Joey Lopes, and today I am joined by Connor, live from New York.
Hi, Joey. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. I think it's the first time anybody's asked me how I'm doing.
I think I usually do ask, actually. But
I just ignore you?
Just
Yes.
ignored.
That's too bad. I'm also joined by Mark, of course.
Hello.
Also live from New York.
Yes,
good to
I
have
am.
you both. So, guys, we're finally here after weeks of hyping this up and talking about Martin Scorsese. We're finally here to talk about the new Martin Scorsese film, The Irishman. So I don't know about you guys, but I've been waiting for this moment for God, who knows how long.
yeah, I know. Definitely the entire year, but practically as soon as it was announced. There was actually a point where I was in Staten Island, New York, actually, with our dad, Joey, and we were by Lee's Tavern where they were filming The Irishman. We were like, man,
Wow.
can't wait for that to actually come out. And that was like 2
really
years
cool.
ago or something. So
Wow,
that's
that's
like,
awesome.
Huh.
Yeah, so
I have to say, I was in the dark until about a month or two ago, and I forgot that this movie existed. So
What a pleasant surprise to wake up
Yeah,
one
that's
morning and
pretty
hear that
good.
there's a new Martin Scorsese movie coming out.
not so bad.
All right, let's just get right into this because I think we're going to have a lot to say about this one. So, Connor, can you give us a synopsis of The Irishman?
Sure. The Irishman, or I Heard You Paint Houses, the novel that this is based on. A former mob hitman, now old and living alone in a nursing home, recalls the events of his life, in particular his friendship with former Teamster president Jimmy Hoffa, who disappeared under mysterious circumstances in July 1975. The film was directed, of course, by Martin Scorsese and stars Robert De Niro as Frank Sheeran, as well as Joe Pesci, who came out of retirement for this role, Al Pacino, who's never worked with Scorsese before. This is the first time, if you can actually believe that.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. As well as many, many other amazing actors that are in this one, too. Harvey Keitel, Ray Romano, Jesse Plemons, Anna Paquin, Bobby Cannavale, and many more. Some that are like surprises that you wouldn't expect to see also that I thought were fun.
I mean, if you get the opportunity to work in a Scorsese movie, I don't think you're going to care how much of a bit part it is. You're going to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, and we can, I'm sure we're going to talk about the cast.
Oh,
So how about this, Mark? Your initial
Oh, no.
impressions of The
I have
Irishman?
to give the first thoughts, huh?
Well, I mean, unless you don't want to, if you have nothing to say.
It's
then,
incredible. I think the one thing that we sort of harped on, I think you mentioned this last week, there's something about this movie, besides the fact that it's, really, really good. Everybody who watches it seems to be like, wow, I need to see that again.
Yeah, right?
Like,
I've seen a
right
lot of
after
people
they
say
watch
that.
it, it's really crazy. I think one of the things that struck me during it, actually, that, like, I was like, oh man, I actually do have to see this again, was that even just during normal-ish scenes, I was getting a little bit overly, like, so drawn in to just conversations and things like that I was kind of forgetting to pay attention to the dialogue too.
You just kind of mesmerized.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, I wasn't even thinking about anything else. I was just like, wait, what are they talking about again?
I mean, it can be like, I definitely feel like there's so much historical detail to everything, and I think the movie does a good job, like, so you're able to make sense of it, but sometimes the specifics are so... They mention there's so many words and there's like terms and things and characters and names that it can get
crazy
like
stuff going on.
Yeah, it could, but again, it's just because the attention to detail, where the world that it's creating is so based in reality, or it doesn't like dumb down the writing or the story to make it easier to follow. It just assumes that the audience will have the smarts to be able to keep up with what's happening if it still like is true with the dialogue, and make sure that the characters are talking about the things
you
that are
can
happening.
get what's going on at any given
Yeah.
it isn't too complicated at any point in time in terms of the plot.
Sure.
It's just, I don't know, it's just incredibly well made.
Yeah.
It seems like something that you can say about literally any Scorsese movie.
I seem to remember when we reviewed Silence a million years
I
ago.
said that too.
You said it was just
Yeah.
like masterfully done, like 5 out of 5. And,
Yeah.
no question about it.
And the one thing is, like, I was talking to somebody about Scorsese in general. I don't even think like any particular Scorsese movie to me is like my favorite movie, but they're just movies that you can't help but be in love with, I guess.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, I think his movies just, most Scorsese movies just will always have a presence in your mind after you've seen them. You know what I mean? Where it's like they're so interesting and nuanced and well crafted that after you see it, like, I couldn't stop thinking about this after I left the theater. Like,
I think I saw it before you too, and I think I said that you won't this is all that's going to dominate your thoughts.
Yeah, like it just has it's been in my mind all day. Like, I could barely focus at work because I was too busy thinking about The Irishman.
Yeah, all these Scorsese movies have a similar feel too. Like where he falls in love with these characters that it seems to always be like the character first. Like I wouldn't consider any of these films that he makes that are based on these actual events like biopics or biopics.
They're character studies.
But they are character studies that are built and the story kind of revolves around these characters that he wants to create. And he bends he's not really concerning himself with historical accuracy per se. Also, and
There's always fantastic.
Yeah,
just amazing depth to all of them too. Like they're never one note. Maybe some of the side characters are, but as far as the main characters, there's always this like deep broiling conflict in any of them that you care to mention, including this one, in my opinion. I don't know if Joey totally agrees with this for what I've seen.
Yeah, so my feeling on, like, so you mentioned that he often makes similar kinds of movies. So I think I mean, this is stupid, but because obviously Martin Scorsese has been so much in the news lately, and the people that don't know anything about Martin Scorsese will say, like, oh, all he makes are gangster movies. So 4 out of the 31 movies that he's made deal with gangsters in some capacity. So that's not a large percentage. But some of the best movies that he's made, or just some of the best movies ever, are his gangster movies. So you got like Goodfellas, you got Casino. But The Irishman, to me, does not feel anything like Goodfellas or Casino. Like those, the movies that it's probably most like, if you read like the synopsis, the ones that'll come to mind first,
you'd think this is basically a sequel to Goodfellas. And in some respects, it does kind of feel like it's on that wavelength more than other movies of his, mostly because it's about the Italian mob again. But I think you're getting at, it has a lot more going on.
Well, the feeling of the movie is completely different, because Goodfellas and Casino are both like extremely energetic movies that are almost fun, but in a perverse way. Because when you're watching like a Goodfellas or Casino, and the same thing with Wolf of Wall Street too, like they're all kind of in the same mold where
all of them are extravagant.
Like, the audience, you find the characters endearing, and you're like laughing with them, and you're enjoying it, despite the fact that they're committing these horrible crimes, and it's like this.
There's a lot of gleefulness,
right? So there's this. It almost implicates the audience a little bit, because it makes you aware of like how the gangster culture is seductive, and it makes you think like, if, and Martin Scorsese has said this, like, maybe if you were born under different circumstances, you could have been one of them, like you might have gotten swept up too. You might, and so the question in those movies is more that kind of nagging conflict between the seduction of it all and the awareness for you that it's ultimately this just an evil enterprise, right?
Yeah.
And usually the characters always will get some kind of comeuppance at the end, right?
This one more than others.
But that's the thing, like The Irishman is never energetic in the same way, and it makes you feel extremely skeptical of this whole gangster operation from the very beginning. And the entire time along the way, like, you never really feel like you're brought into the world as somebody that's enjoying it along with them. You're kind of detached and being like, and almost pitying them, it feels like, and especially towards the end, which is because obviously this movie, like, part of the point of the movie is that it follows this character's entire life, almost like not when he was a kid, but like his entire life with the mob up until basically his death, or when he's like an old man. So you get this very like widespread portrait of his involvement in this gangster underworld, and at no point do you really feel like this was something that anybody should have been involved with. And like, so just like one really obvious example of that, like a couple of times during the movie, like more than a couple really, like a character will be introduced and then text will come up on screen telling you how they died a horrible death when they were like in their 30s, like, got shot in the head 3 times, or they got hit on their porch,
Right.
like in the middle of the
Or
night.
got
Right?
shot outside when they're getting into their car. I think
Right.
almost every major player other than the obvious ones, in the Mafia gets one of those title cards.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
Just a fantastic touch.
So it just makes you think the entire time, like, these guys did all this for nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that's the moral.
yeah,
They got nothing out
right.
of this.
But the way the movie really, really hits that home is just with this main character, Frank Sheeran, and the journey he goes on. And I mean, at least for me, like, by the time the movie ended, I was like shell shocked. Like, and the thing is, like, you never really feel endeared to Frank in the same way as like even some of the other gangster movies that Scorsese's made, where his characters, like, I wouldn't say they have a conscience necessarily, but they sort of do a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, they sort of understand a little bit. Like, I think about like Henry Hill when in Goodfellas when they're beating up it was a Billy Bats in the in the bar, like when Henry Hill's watching that, he's horrified, but he's so ingrained in the culture, there's nothing he can do about it, and he just kind of goes along with it. But like, Frank Sheeran is just a cold-blooded, remorseless murderer.
I think he's got some kind of split in him, though.
There
especially
is a little
there's
bit
definitely
of nuance.
something under the surface, but it's like so deep within
His
him.
especially
detached.
his relationship with Jimmy Hoffa is the most interesting part of the film.
Definitely.
So, all right, before we get into this, Mark, I saw this at we both are in New York, obviously. I saw this at the IFC Center. Where did you see this?
I actually saw it there, too. I talked to them before the movie if I could buy a bag of David Lynch signature coffee. Apparently, they only sell cups of it there, and I was kind of disappointed. And the guy gave me a look, and I was like, all right, fine. He's like, you can probably buy it online.
All right, well, so the IFC Center is obviously a wonderful theater.
It's
plays
beautiful.
Independent movies. We're so thankful that New York has these certain theaters that are allowed to, screen this. And we saw it early. I saw it the day after it came out, which is just incredible. But Joey, I think you had to go on a little bit of a adventure to see this.
Yeah,
right?
so I went to see The Irishman at the Bryn Mawr Film Institute in Bryn Mawr, PA, because unsurprisingly, there are pretty much no theaters in Delaware are showing this movie yet. I think I read somewhere that the Penn Cinema in Wilmington is going to be getting it at the end of the month for like one weekend or something, and there might be like another theater down like by Rehoboth Beach, I think, that's going to get it. But like,
and there's an irony in that I think we'll talk about.
I have a little bit more to say, but I think it's kind of funny that Delaware isn't getting this movie in particular, because you guys were saying there's actually a pretty interesting Delaware connection in The Irishman. If one of you guys want to get into that.
Well, there's like two. So not only does a decent portion, maybe somewhat unnamed, but a couple of very pivotal events in this movie happen in Delaware. Most of the movies, like, in southern Philadelphia. So it's local characters, people from the area. But not only that, the author of the book, I Hear You Paint Houses.
Which is what this is based
houses. On. That guy's from Delaware. He was like, I believe a police chief or something. Yeah. And he got his claim to fame from writing this book. So it's like a really heavily Delaware influenced thing.
Yeah, it's pretty unique.
Right. His name is Charles Brandt. Yeah.
The author. Yeah.
Yes. The author. Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
Crazy.
Yeah, Connor, you were saying that at one point in the movie, Frank Sheeran, the main character, he becomes the head of one district of the Teamsters Union. And Connor, you were saying that district, that it doesn't say in the movie, but it was historically in Wilmington, Delaware.
Yeah, it was actually in Wilmington, Delaware.
Yeah, so that's pretty crazy. So there's definitely a local connection here in this movie. So it's kind of unfortunate that you can't actually see it in theaters in Delaware. So yeah, anybody that wants to claim that, if you want to see Scorsese movies, you still can. It's not like the Marvel movies and Star Wars and franchise movies are driving it out. You can still see them. No, you can't actually. Like, it actually isn't playing. Yeah. But of course, that's to be fair, it's partially Netflix's fault.
Ever about Delaware, and you can't see it in Delaware.
Yeah. It is a little unfortunate, but like I said, I mean, it's sort of Netflix's fault, because Netflix's whole play is like, they're the ones who produced this movie. They financed this movie, so their whole thing is, our business is selling subscriptions. So if we let this have a gigantic theatrical release, everybody will see it, and then it won't be an incentive to buy Netflix, right? So they're skeptical of putting things in theaters, much to the chagrin of theater owners and filmmakers who, obviously want their movies on the biggest screen possible. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So anyway, to get back to my story here.
Yes.
So me and my dad drove up an hour north roughly to Bryn Mawr to see it. And before the movie, we went to dinner at a bar just a few buildings down. So, like, the area by the Bryn Mawr Film Institute is actually, like, this really nice kind of, like, little downtown area. It's really close to Villanova's campus, actually. You like, drive right through it. So, really nice buildings there. And I never saw Villanova before. Gotta say, definitely impressed.
It is very nice, yeah.
So, anyway, we finished dinner, right, and we asked for the check. And we just mentioned offhand that we're going to a movie down the street. And our waiter goes like, "Oh, are you going to see The Irishman? Oh my God, people have been coming in here all weekend raving about it. I haven't got a chance to see it yet." So I'm like, "Yeah, that's right. We're seeing The Irishman, and I'm super excited." And the guy goes, "Well, I mean, it's Scorsese. I mean, you can't go wrong." So I gotta say, like, after this exchange, I like just had to like look around and was like, "Is this a dream? Like, where am I? where I can go to just a random bar and people are just like raving about the new Scorsese movie. Like, is this real? Are these people real? Am I actually in a real place where like there's an actual like film culture and people are talking about this?" Then we go to the theater. It's completely sold out on a Sunday night at like 7:00 for a 3.5-hour movie. And the owner of the place mentioned that every single screening they've done so far has sold out. So yeah. I gotta say, like, before the movie started, I felt like I had died and gone to heaven. Man, like this could not have been a better environment for me to see this movie.
Yeah, and it's been the same thing here too. Like in New York, it's just sellout after sellout, sellout,
packed.
It's just it's awesome.
So it almost like brings you up a little bit. It makes you think like maybe there is hope for movies. If people are willing to come to this 3.5-hour movie, and I gotta say, like, for the entire movie, not a single person got up to use the bathroom in my screen.
Well, you're just lucky there. Somebody next to me did it.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But it was amazing for my screening. Like, everybody was just like glued to the screen.
No one left during mine. Also, it was great.
Unbelievable. Like I just a wonderful screening experience. And I wish that we could have the same kind of experience in Delaware more easily. Like, I feel like Newark is the kind of town that should have like an art house movie theater or something like that, where it's a small town very similar to that Bryn Mawr area with like Main Street, right? So I feel like if there was something like that just showed more interesting movies. Like the theater was also showing Parasite. It was showing I think Jojo
Seriously?
Rabbit. Yeah, it was great. It's an art house theater that just this little community is actually like embraces it. Right?
That's really cool.
It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful, and it just made me upset that like I have to drive an hour to get that. I can't just like have that in my own town. Because the Main Street Movies 5 theater, like that's just Marvel, Disney, the biggest possible movies ever. And that's it. Like, I don't think they do anything else. So it's very interesting. Very interesting.
Well, hopefully this will lead to something new.
You'd hope so.
So. Before we get more into the movie, so like this is Netflix financed this film, right?
Yeah.
And I guess it only was given a small distribution because as that was a requirement from Scorsese that it had needed some kind of theatrical run to be so the film could be seen in the way he intended it. He's still making the film for the theater screen. Why do you think that? Because he pitched this around everywhere.
Right.
Why do you think that another, no one else would want to finance this, and do it in the traditional way where it gets on the big screens? Why? Do you think it's because of what happened with Silence, that Silence wasn't a big success, or it actually lost money? Like, what do you think it was? Like, what's the reason?
People have to know that that's a more limited market for that kind of movie.
I definitely don't think Silence was the reason. I think you got to keep in mind, like, if you look at any of like the business of movies right now, the audiences have spoken kind of, where if you look at, like, I don't remember the article. It had like graphs and data and all that, all the good stuff. But it basically showed that if a movie is not based on something, audiences just are not going to see it. And then if a movie is not, and even if a movie is based on something, they probably still won't see it, but at least there's a chance. So that's why you get movies like, Men in Black International, and I think they're making another Ghostbusters, because the whole point is like, if we fail once, we got to try again, because what are we going to do? We're going to make we're going to make an original idea that audiences don't want to see even more than a franchise movie that they didn't want to see. Like, of course not, right? So I think they look at this movie and they say, this is 3.5 hours and it stars a bunch of old people. I honestly think that's the biggest thing. And they say it's not based on anything that, our biggest market will support. Like, and so you got to understand, the studios are not in the business of making movies like this anymore. Like, it's just it's not something that they're willing to do because of the risk involved. But the funny thing is, like, maybe it's just because of the scarcity that Netflix has with the theaters here. But the fact that this has been selling out like crazy everywhere that it's been open just feels to me like
somebody
so
missed
telling.
something.
But like Martin Scorsese put it the best in his op-ed in the New York Times, where he was like, this is a chicken and the egg problem. It's not because audiences just want to see franchise movies. It's because that's all they're being fed, right? Like, if there was more options available in most major markets, then the audience would appear for these things. There needs to be a more distinct push for them, which I don't think is really happening. So that's really
one thing that I'll say, though, that probably I bet you some studios would have tried to finance this and do it in more of a traditional way. But a big aspect to this one was the digital de-aging technology that was required, and it cost a fortune.
Extremely
and the only
expensive.
Ones that were willing to actually do this was Netflix, I guess, and that's what a big bulk of the budget went towards. And that's something I want to talk about, is the digital de-aging, because I think it's one of the most interesting aspects of the film, because we're seeing this lead character, Frank Sheeran, who's played by Robert De Niro, and we see pretty much his life from when he's in his 40s till when he's a very old man.
Yeah.
And I think, at least for me, it's the best use of the digital de-aging of it I've seen. I think you almost can't tell. It's great on faces. The only thing I would say is there's certain scenes where it looks like there's a young face on an old body, and the only reason for that is because it's the truth. That's what it is. And you know what? That doesn't actually ruin it for me. It doesn't change anything. Some people are a little more negative about it, but like, what are you supposed to do with that? Like, you can't digitally de-age someone's body to be younger unless it's just a completely animated thing.
You'd use somebody else's body and paste a face on it.
That's awful, though.
And that's not their performance. That's not the same thing.
Exactly. So that didn't bother me. There's only one scene in particular that I realized that I noticed, and it was that scene outside of the grocery store.
Yeah, I wasn't really even looking for it, and if you're not, I wasn't even seeing it. It was just kind of like, this is just the movie to me.
I think you notice it, good. But it's not something that feels like uncanny valley bad. It's just like, okay, you can tell that something was done. I think that's partially because we know what these guys looked like when they were younger. We've seen Goodfellas. We know what Robert De Niro looked like 30 years ago. So like, when you see the digital de-aging technology on it, it's like, you can kind of tell that it's not the same looking guy. Like, it looks like, I don't know if it's just like his facial looks bigger. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It's like more
a little more stretched out or something.
Somehow.
I don't know.
But like, it's I feel like they did a really fantastic job for the most part. Like, at some point, because the movie's like jumping back and forth between time periods, like after a certain point, you don't even know like when the technology is being used and when it's not. And I don't know. I feel like at first you notice it, but then it's just an aspect of the movie that you just start to buy into. In the same way that you buy into like, stupid CGI in a superhero movie, right? Like, that's fake, but like, it's okay. It's just part of the world. It's part of the filmmaking.
Yeah, the thing I liked about this digital de-aging, though, is that this film was not made because they had this digital de-aging. There was the story that they wanted to tell, and this enhanced it. It's not like that movie we all saw recently, like Gemini Man, which was made just solely because they had the ability to digitally de-age Will Smith. That's all that was. This was a film that had a story that was about this character.
You shouldn't write stories around special effects.
Right. Well, think about it. Like, the alternative would have been that they would have to cast a younger like actor to play the part, and like, you can kind of get away with that if it's like 30-year-old versus like a 15-year-old, but you can't really get away with that with like a 60-year-old versus a 40-year-old. Like,
and it kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. And like, because this is a movie about having Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, Al Pacino, and like you have to have those guys performing these roles. And again, like, it works. Like, that's the important thing. It works. It's part of the filmmaking. It's part of the style. And the performances from all of the cast in this movie is otherworldly. Like, it's top of the line.
They're tremendous. They play off each other so well. It's just... that's another reason why I want to see it again so badly, just to watch them all interact together again.
Yeah,
and I mean, everyone. The scenes with Ray Romano, who plays Bill Buffalino, who's like the lawyer.
Yeah.
He's incredible in it.
Great.
It all works so well together.
I really love Ray Romano in this movie. The only issue is Ray Romano is always Ray Romano, but I don't think anybody else is like that. And don't get me wrong, it's great seeing him do his thing. But
yeah, for sure,
man.
But I mean, like, obviously, like, Al Pacino as Jimmy Hoffa, and to some degree steals the show. I mean, I think Robert De Niro's performance is as good as any of the best performances De Niro's ever given.
Oh yeah, and he's ratcheted up. He's ratcheting it up.
It's kind of tough to pick who was the best supporting actor out of this whole thing.
No, everybody was 100% committed to doing this.
I was saying Al Pacino was firing. Al Pacino was firing on all cylinders. He was doing his, it was great.
He was doing his Pacino stuff.
Really
he was doing his Pacino stuff.
It's a vintage Pacino performance.
When he's
such a good way,
Yeah, oh, it's great. Like that scene, like it's in the trailer. Like when he's like, "You see a guy with a gun, you charge him. A knife, you run away. Gun, charge, knife, charge." And
then Joe Pesci playing a character that's very different from his again, like, just I feel like Joe Pesci's character is a perfect encapsulation of the difference between The Irishman and like Goodfellas and Casino.
He's the opposite.
Yeah, he's very reserved, very cold, and in some ways like more scary because of that.
Oh yeah, he's
by far.
He's like in the back, in the distance, kind of like pulling the strings and like manipulating a bit.
He's the mastermind guy this time.
Yeah, and Frank Sheeran's daughter saw right through him, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
so, that's something we could talk about real quick. So that's played by Anna Paquin.
Mm-hmm.
He has a few daughters, I guess, but. It's Anna Paquin in this, and some people are not enjoying or didn't like her performance as much, or didn't think she had enough to work with. I just think the expressions on her face and just like, I thought she gave a great performance too.
Yeah, I think she's perfect for what the movie is using her for.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't see how you could do more than what they did with what her character was. Like,
I don't know. It's just something. It's things I've been reading, which I don't agree with.
I got to be honest. Like, we've all been reading things, right, about Martin Scorsese the past couple of weeks, and you know what? At the end of the day, I'm just gonna ignore all of that, because we just got what very well could be just another Martin Scorsese just masterpiece, right? Like, I don't want to think about what Chris Evans had to say about Scorsese's Marvel comments. I don't care. At this point, like, forget the discourse. Just get Twitter out of your brain and just go see The Irishman. Okay? Because this is a real fantastic movie. And like, I want to like try to avoid just hyperbole, because I feel like that's not constructive, but like, I really, really think everybody should track this down as soon as possible and like see it on a big screen. If you can see it in a theater, like, it will be coming into Delaware like a couple weeks from now. But even if you can't, watch it on Netflix. I know you all have Netflix. You all can watch it. Just you have to watch it. And it's just a phenomenal movie. I really have nothing more to say.
It's amazing. I feel like we're just getting started talking about this, and
yet we're out of time.
We're out of time.
Yeah. I feel like we could have gone on for another half hour.
Long while.
What can I say? So
I do think we'll be talking about this again, like down the line, when we're thinking about award season, especially.
I mean, like I said, this is the kind of movie that you see it and then you live with it for the rest of your life.